he's going to be 82 when should he be reelected, and if he serves out the entirety of a second term, he'll be closer to 90 than he will be to 80. And this raises lots of concerns, justifiable concerns in my view, about his ability to fulfill all the obligations of the office, concerns about his health, his ability to actually finish out a second term, and what that means for the possibility of a President Harris stepping in. There are lots of concerns that are raised in that space. One more point on this, though, the front runner on the Republican side is no spring chicken either. If it ends up being Trump, he will be 78, which will be, should he win in 2024, that would make him the second oldest person to hold the office.
I think the question of Joe Biden's age is going to be fairly significant once he announces and as we move through the campaign. It's important to remember that 2020 was by far not even close to being a normal election with the pandemic, everyone, nearly everyone under lockdown. So he wasn't campaigning like a normal candidate would have been. And so now at the age of 80, I think that's going to be a significant factor, whether or not he's going to be able to keep up with that pace that voters expect to see candidates, put themselves through when they're running for president. So
there's a long history of Biden as both candidate and as senator of speaking kind of out of turn or saying things he wish he hadn't said, off the cuff, that kind of thing. And it's not so much that I would be concerned about. It's more the kinds of things that might betray declining mental acuity, but betray flagging energy that he can bring to the office. This is an impossible job. I think we're going to have two very old white men as the front runners in a country that's increasingly diverse. And whose average age is less than half, right, than their ages. So, like, what to do here again? I think Kamala Harris could be an asset, a political asset potentially for Biden. At least, she's decades younger than Biden.
They're going to have to rely probably on Kamala Harris quite a bit. They're going to have to rely on, other surrogates, that really the next generation of leaders in the Democratic Party. And I suspect that they're going to want Barack Obama out on the campaign trail as much as possible. So they've got some people that they can call in, which we saw in 2022, we saw in 2020. But then that doesn't exactly leave a lot of confidence in the actual nominee if Joe Biden can't generate that kind of excitement without calling in the other younger, more charismatic people within the party.
Biden's bid has never been about what he personally embodies or about his status as the most charismatic politician in the room. He's not. He's not as entertaining to watch as either Trump or Obama or Reagan or virtually anybody in the last 40 years. But he has been fairly successful at kind of cobbling together this broader coalition. So the question is that enough in our very individual-centric, politician-centric environment? In an environment where we do kind of look to politicians, particularly the president, to be entertaining and to be the focal point of the party and the nation in this specific way, can Biden make that work again? It's not clear.
I think more generally that the thing that the Democratic Party is going to need to do is to figure out how to hand the mantle off to a younger generation, and to the extent that our parties, both parties, are struggling to maintain their cohesion and to be a force for good in disciplining our politics, that's going to be increasingly strained to the extent that they're seen as being, the party of the very old.
President, will you come talk to us?
Well, he would be setting a record, but records for aging are being set all the time. We now have a 100-year-old marathon record, which was inconceivable a while ago. There have been world leaders in the past that have lasted that long, but I think we're in new territory here because we're healthier than we ever were before, and I think not everybody has realized that fact that an 80-year-old or an 86-year-old today, particularly one that's had a history of good health, is very, very different than an 80 or an 86-year-old was 50 years ago. Well, there's no hard numbers, but I think we can get an indication if we just look at our ex-presidents. You know, if you look at the presidents that died most recently, you know, the older George Bush died at 94, Reagan and Ford died at 93. You know, Jimmy Carter is still alive at 98, and then we have a whole bunch of younger presidents. There's some of them in their 70s and now. So the recent history is that the people who make it through all the stress and strain of those campaigns tend to be people that are ultimately very physically robust. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I don't think you can ignore, because even the healthiest people, when you get up, their health can turn around very, very quickly. So it's something to be aware of. But again, the amount of medical supervision and monitoring that a modern president is under is just incredible. And so my thought is, if his physicians think that he's up to it and he gets through the rigors of a presidential campaign, that there's no reason to think that he couldn't, you know, continue to the end of a second term.